everybody, my name is Gemma Carney and I am based here at Queen's University Belfast, where I am Director of Public Engagement for ARC and part of the team on the ARC Ageing Programme. What I'm going to talk to you about today is some research that I've been presenting to pensioners groups over the last year or so, really asking the question, why are the boomers being blamed for Brexit? One of the things that I'm presenting at the Irish Gerontological Society later this week, the title of the paper is Brexit and the Myth of Generational Warfare, and it draws on the paper that I gave to the Pensioners Parliament in Blackpool in June this year. The question I asked really was, why have the baby boomers been blamed for Brexit in the press? Because as we all know, there was a lot of hysteria following the June 2016 referendum on the vote to leave the European Union that happened in the UK. In the weeks following that, there was loads and loads of references to older people having voted leave. And I really thought this resonated with some of Alan Walker's work around this idea of how there is this new ageism, that in the era of neoliberalism, that we really have started to see this idea that this political narrative that Walker talks about, that is prevalent, that seems to assume that spending any public money on ageing and older people is in some way kind of robbing the public coffers. But for this presentation, what I'm interested in is the idea of how, following the vote, particularly those people who weren't happy with the outcome, really kind of flailed around and sought someone to blame. And some research that was done by Moore and Ramsey in King's College London on the media representations preceding the vote were very interesting, in that they showed that migration and the economy were the big issues. And migrants were really targeted in particularly the right-wing press coming up to the referendum. But in the days and weeks following the referendum, it was in fact older people who were blamed for the outcome. Now, to me, as a political scientist and a gerontologist, this is fascinating, because what it shows me is that in a democratic system, if you have a group that have a reputation for voting consistently, that when there is an outcome, particularly of a very, very black and white electoral event like a referendum, and whoever voted will get the blame. Which, of course, for any Democrats is completely ridiculous, because surely if you don't like the outcome, it's the people who didn't vote who should get the blame, or indeed the people who posed the question in the first place. Instead, what we saw were lots of headlines. Headlines which said things like, it falls to millennials to fix their elders' mistakes, or Brexit drew battle lines in new intergenerational war. But what really, really inspired and continues to motivate me to do this work was those very ageist headlines took up the first few days and weeks, days really, of the press coverage following the referendum. But then you started to see pensioners writing letters where they were trying to really explain how they aren't all the same, and that there is diversity in the older population, that many of them did vote Remain, and even those that did vote Leave, they still have a right to vote Leave, and that it really isn't fair to pillory a whole generation for the outcome of one electoral event. And I love one of the letters written by Joyce Wildman, who wrote a letter to The Guardian, and she said, "Oh dear, I'm 81 and voted Remain. Should I get a t-shirt printed with this in case I meet some hostile young people?" Another pensioner likened the use of an in-out referendum to decide on something as complex as EU membership as using a chainsaw to do heart surgery. The central point is that chronological age is really socially constructed to give it more meaning than it might have in a person's daily life. Yes, we know age is important. Yes, we know as gerontologists, of course, that ageism is a problem. We know anybody who studies biology and physiology of aging knows that there are implications of getting older. What's really wrong is to use age as a way to place people into a category that makes them worth a little bit less than younger people.